then you have that little knobbly bit, and then you have the weird mitten down here. Probably do that. See, there's the weird mitten. And I brought those things down too far. But you get the idea. And then there's the cartilage, and then that in reality would probably be further up there. But yeah, my art style is hardly perfect. It is very messy, and I revive it on a constant basis simply because that's just how I do. What else can I show you guys? Do you have any questions you want me to ask? It doesn't necessarily
have something about
nose. Okay. This is just your basic stock standard nose, but the more I do this fast, the more I can spend trying to add variety to it. So nostril 1, nostril 2, and then like that, and then like that. I basically do as few lines as possible. In fact, this bit here would not be a solid line. It would be something like that. It would be
shading.
Yeah, I'd leave most of the job up to shading, and I probably wouldn't even bring the line down as far as that. I'd probably go like that. So I'd just hint at where the bridge is and leave the detail there. The less detail in actual lines, the better, because no nose is actually, you know, solid defined lines like that. But I'd shade it something like different perspective, but the point still stands that if I were to have the light source coming from that, this would be the lightest, this would be the second lightest, probably darker around these edges. This would be the darkest. Basically just look at yourself with strong light in a mirror and base it off of that.
Strong light is a glorious thing.
Strong light is a very glorious thing, but if you don't do it right, it can make you look very weird.
Indeed.
But yeah, I find leave all the detail of the nose up to shading and it won't look weird. That's my history at least of it. What else?
There's some artists I've seen that just completely don't do a nose, or they'll just do like a dot, or they'll have just a tiny nub coming out when they're sideways.
Boob gravity.
Boob gravity. Okay, first of all, yeah, and you're totally welcome to stylize your noses as much as possible. I just tend to go for not necessarily realistic. I wouldn't say my style is very realistic at all. I just tend to focus more on taking anatomy and going one deviation away instead of several, if that makes sense. Okay, you want me to rant about boob physics? Because boy can I rant about boob physics. Okay, let's make a torso. Neck. Clavicle. Don't forget, ladies have pecs too. This is such a bad torso, forgive me. Okay, so.
Not until you put boobs on it.
Okay, step 1. You remember how I said head 2 was where the nipples should be?
Yeah.
For the proportions? No, that's not the case with boobs. If head 2 was where the nipples would be, your boobs would be right up at the collarbone, like up here. And that's not how it works, because it's like gravity isn't a thing. The second thing I find really weird is that when people draw flesh versions of the person, let's do a side view below. So here is my janky side view of a person. They tend to just do that, just put like a semicircle on the front, which is also not true. It's certainly better than putting like a perfect circle up here, but it's not quite there yet. What I like to think of boobs is like a standard balloon full of water, and it attaches itself right at the collarbone up here. So it's letting gravity hang down, let it pull itself down. You'll find that the majority of the mass, or the fatty deposits, will occur right underneath the pec muscle. It would usually, if we would actually see the distribution of fat on a human body, it would either go in a comma kind of shape like this, or it would go up like this, or a mixture between the two, because not only do you have the boob fat, but it seems to go around like so. So this is sort of the distribution of boob fat. But if we were to translate that to a better version we can use stylistically for figure drawing, I'd say that you're probably better off. Oh my god, I hate this torso already. Sorry, the a million pairs of boobs, bad boobs, were scaring me.
Run away from them.
Run away from the boobs, guys. Okay.
That should be a movie.
Attack of the boobs.
I'm sure it's a movie somewhere.
I have no doubt.
Oh,
I'm half into
movie.
Google it, but
Okay, so we'd go kind of like a teardrop shape. And we'd have it end down here. So that's where the pec would end, this is where the boob would end. And no boob is going to have cleavage. No matter how big the person is, unless you're leaning down, or if you're actively doing this, no bra, no boob size will actually give you a perfect line down the middle. There will always be, if it's fitting properly, there will always be a little bit of space. The only line you'll see is probably shadow. So her boobs are a little too far. Oh, no, I'd say they're okay. But you want to get this kind of teardrop shape. And if we were to project that to a side view, again, here is rib cage, here is head, here is shoulder. Okay, so if we were to project that to a side view, that's what it would look like. And the bigger they, if it's smaller, on some people, not all, you'll see it become convex, so that there's only a bit of skin and the only fat you'll see is actually below the pec, so it'll be a bit convex. And if it's larger, it concave if it's smaller for some people, not all. For larger people, you'll find that the curve goes way down, so the nipple would be down here instead of up here. Have you just found a thing dedicated to boob physics? That's fantastic.
Seriously, pull it up on Facebook, really helpful.
Yeah. I'll show it after, but yeah. So basically, what you need to remember is water balloon attached at here, and to a lesser extent down here. It still applies to physics. It doesn't change that. They're not freaking beach balls, and they're not going to be attached to the top of your chest. It just doesn't work that way, and it really irritates me when people think it does. I have had large rants about boob physics, and I'm trying to tone it down, because I don't want this to be, you know, the rest of the time being like, this is why boob physics is important, you guys. But it is important. Anything else?
Look at thing on Facebook.
Look at thing on Facebook, okay. I am professional, you guys. I have planned this to extremes. What? We might want to blur this out just for my friends' privacy. There we go. This is more what I'm getting at. See, I can't zoom in. Oh, maybe?
Download image, you can zoom in more than that.
Cool.
It also has a thing ranting about it
She
on the side. Because
him or her probably does a much better job at explaining boob physics than I do, but that's the way I remember it. The water balloon method is the way I remember it. And it's probably still not accurate, but certainly better than giant honking great big beach balls.
read the top one.
Yep, they have mass. Leave the gravity-defying cantaloupes to the adult film stars. Yeah, and I think something really important to notice here is the nipple placement. Because the larger they get, in fact, any size, no matter how large, they're not going to be staring straight forward. They're going to be off to the side. remember when I used that the triangle for the female? Those sort of 3 points indicated where the clavicle was and where the nipples were. So they won't be staring down, they'll be going to the side. Yeah, in fact all of these are pretty much right. Yay! Okay, so any other questions that I can answer?
Why is there so much controversy for boob physics, but it's, when you think about it, there's no really part of the male body that has been emphasized as much as female boobs?
Ethics in video game journalism.
Will there be
I'm gonna
anything-
go with ancient history. Dicks are everywhere. Seriously, they actually
Pretty
had
much.
the increase. There was a thing where they would have like milestones that were shaped like giant penises. That was actually what they looked like. And my favorite lantern from Pompeii is this tiny penis with wings. That is a legitimate lantern in Pompeii.
I want to see the flying penis.
I will see if I can find an image.
Maybe the next balloon commissioned by the ACT government.
Give me that.
Skywalk was actually on up for sale now.
From
Oh, I really want to buy
practicality point of
Skywalk.
view,
How much is it
Hannah.
going for?
Okay.
300
What?
grand.
From a
Yeah.
practicality point of view, unless you're drawing males and females naked, you're more likely to see boobs underneath clothing than you are to see dicks underneath clothing.
Yes.
Unless the pants were obscenely tight, and then you have more
David
issues.
Bowie.
But then you'd have more issues with what muscles could you see underneath the cloth.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like the tighter the clothes, the harder it gets. Hey! But
So even really loose clothes, like say toga style clothes, are easier than tight clothes.
yes, but I wouldn't say that should be a reason to get lazy with anatomy.
I found them. They're apparently to protect against evil spirits.
Evil dick spirits?
Evil dick spirits.
Okay, cool.
You thought I was kidding. This is a legit thing. Look at the thing.
It has wings!
Why?
That is actually a fake penis.
I want one! I mean,
I thought you already had one.
it'll be my mascot.
This was the one I was specifically thinking of. But yeah. Winged
casually.
penis lamps.
Interesting.
Who do you want for the XSA?
Oh, yes.
Quick question.
Yeah.
There's in popularized animes and mangas,
Yeah.
especially shoujo
Mm-hmm.
manga, you can normally see the characters as skinny, big-eyed, and things like that. And I was
Yeah.
very interested in when you said about the facial features, the eyes kind of defined the parts of the face. But when you're looking at that form of style with shoujo eyes and very stereotypical type anime styles, the eyes don't fit the face.
Yes. I made a very large generalization when I said that the proportions of the face are universal. The proportions of the face are universal if you actually use the proportions of the face.
Okay.
Compensation.
In a lot of cases, when you have those giant shovel, not shovel, more like ace of spades, but upside down anime head, they've got the eyes like as far apart as they can, and then the nose and the mouth tiny. It's quite obvious that they're not really caring about proportions. And for that style, it could be okay. It's not necessarily a matter of accuracy, it's a matter of A, what's appealing to the audience, and B, what's appealing to the artist. I used to draw kind of that style, certainly not the eyes that far apart, but now I don't necessarily see the appeal, because I kind of prefer things more like this rather than things more like that. I'm not even sure you can see what I've just drawn. But yeah.
Are there any styles in particular that, like any artist styles that, like getting, say, the human body and kind of just not destroying, but like mismatching the proportions so it's out of shape, like Do you think that would be something you would see very often, or do you think it's
No,
more nice
but I
to see
did.
something
I
you
have seen
watch?
one recently.
I would also
I'll
just like
look
to
up.
comment that as people, I can't remember what the actual term for this is, but we're very good at seeing human figures and human faces
Yes, we really,
in
really
things
are.
that aren't.
Such as cars.
Like
Such as the
such
example.
as Jesus on toast.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus on toast. I have a loaf of bread in my freezer that looks like a bunny rabbit. Honest to God, it looks like a rabbit.
I'm feeling
Can
the word
confirm.
anthropomorphism,
Okay,
I don't think
this
so.
is definitely one of my inspirations, but I wanted to show you. He's usually an animator. He did the Google Doodle and he also did a music video for 2 people, whatever. But he did something called
Oh wow.
yeah, and you can see they take the proportions and blow them to extremes. So you can obviously see that he knows the proportions, but as soon as he starts emphasizing this,
Whoa.
meaty man hands and not to mention the butt,
That
And
movie.
on the bot.
yeah, it gets incredibly impressive. You can see all of them here. And it gets to the point where not only does whacking out the proportions emphasize movement, like those proportions are a little bit off, but it's because it looks more fluid doing that. But it also really defines the character. Like those two seem to me that their characters would be polar opposites simply because they look so different. But yeah, he's definitely one of my inspirations, and if you wanted to take a look at examples where proportions are blown way out, but it still looks semi-realistic, and I use that in air quotes, definitely that guy.
Yeah. Just thinking, we find baby animals really cute,
Mhm.
but normally we say, oh, they've got such big eyes and such big ears for their body proportions.
Mhm.
Except we normally just say, "Ah!"
Yeah.
and not anything that eloquent. But do you think the proportions of body can make you instantly have certain thoughts about it? Like,
Definitely.
Oh, hell yeah.
Definitely. And like, the 8 head rule, definitely, if you haven't picked up yet, definitely doesn't apply to children. And children are usually...
Children are terrifying.
Babies are 2 heads, children are 2 to 3 heads. So like, when I say babies are 2 heads, I mean 1 head is the head, the second head is the body. So the head, if you're stylizing it, the head will be huge and the body will be... Maybe it's 3 heads, maybe I'm doing cartoon babies. Yeah, that's more like it. But I definitely think that proportions can have a huge effect on the way you perceive things, and I think that has a lot to do with the anime style, because they usually have large heads in proportion to their necks, or at least in proportion, or in proportion in their body, one of the two or both. Then the eyes are considerably larger than the rest of their features. Their nose and their mouth are usually kept quite small. Their lips are quite thin, but their eyes are huge. And sometimes not even the eyebrows are defined. It's just all in the eyes. And as a result of that, it seems more appealing because all you can focus on is the eyes staring, almost as if they were staring right back at you. I personally think that's why they do it, because they find it to be more alluring. Not necessarily in the same way as tiny puppies and kittens, but you get the gist.
I'm just also thinking about the giant amount of hair to emphasize how thin the body is.
Mm-hmm. And how it defies any and all forms of gravity.
Gravity? What is this thing?
But something else that's really important when it comes to proportions and is very challenging to do is facial expressions.
Oh yeah.
Are such a pain in the butt because we have tiny surface and we have very, very advanced. Pardon?
So much range.
Yeah, exactly. And we are very, very good at picking up expressions and differentiating between faces.
What's even
So as soon as you try and draw them, it's you do a tiny line offline, or you make something slightly bigger or slightly smaller or more curved, and people will interpret that in an entirely different way.
They really, really will. And it's even harder when you get to something like 3/4 view, because not only do you have to focus on what it looks like, but you have to... When you do 3/4 view, it's not like you have half the mouth and the other half disappears, which was what I used to do when I stylized it. Instead, it's like one half is normal and the other half is extremely compressed. I'm talking like, say, zoom in. Or not. Faster. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, say this is where the mouth is. Is the Cupid's bow, and the first half will look more or less the same.
It's a kitty face.
It
But
is.
then
Colon 3.
I think she's pouting if it's a she. But you can see that
Kitty face.
I haven't gotten rid of anything. The mouth is still there, but when comparing the two, it's just heavily compressed and it can be really difficult. Because originally I was going to go for a natural expression, and the mouth has like just a neutral one, but the mouth naturally has either an upwards or a downwards curve. But now it just looks like a kitty face.
And that's exactly it. It's the tiniest of lines and the tiniest of angles, and we're just like, kitty!
And I find that I get this habit, say if I'm doing just a regular face head on, and I'm trying to get an expression, and a lot of people have noticed this if I'm drawing in public, that I replicate that expression.
Well, that would be amusing.
I would love you to do portraits of other people and replicate their expression while you're drawing their expression.
That would be difficult. What the hell?
And a classic Anita, hey buddy, or something to that effect.
Hey buddy. Anyway, you get the idea. And again, I use a triangle for nose shorthand, but I don't do the sideways triangle. I just do a triangle indicating where the nostrils are.
That's a very high nostril.
Depends on the angle. Usually it would be like that.
Oh no, I was talking about the thing below it. If it was on the other face.
Oh yeah. Anything else that you guys want to know about? I have 15 minutes.
How do you draw fat people?
How do I draw fat people? Okay. I'm not sure if you can see it because it might be super pale. I'm just gonna make sure that I think it's this layer. There we go. Okay. So can you vaguely see the purple lines here? Yeah, you kind of can. But you can see the fat deposits differently on males and females. Generally, this is a huge generalization. It'll change from person to person. But generally, there's an emphasis that the fat long women are usually deposited at the hips, at the stomach, at the mons, the breasts. Obviously, there's some around the knees. There's a lot on the thighs, and the same more or less applies for men. But you've got this less focus on the hips and more focus on the stomach. There will obviously be some at the hips, and of course it all depends on how overweight the man or woman is. But say if I were to, I'm going to go with green, try and embiggen these people.
Embiggen. Is
Yes.
that a proper term?
Yes.
Of course,
It's a
that's
scientific
an art
term,
term.
in fact.
And this might be difficult because if I was drawing a truly, like, if I were to draw a person whose width is the same as his height, they wouldn't be standing with their legs that close together. But let's just see how we go. Okay, so we'd first of all, everything becomes convex. Everything becomes convex. So you see how I had those little divots, although they're still there, they're definitely not as pronounced as they were before. And sometimes you might want a tiny bit of paunch. But let's just say he's wearing, for the sake of it, he's going to be wearing pants. So there's going to be a tiny bit of paunch. But again, it depends on... I'm going to use this phrase to death, but it depends on your style and it depends on your character. And I will use that till the end of time. If I were to draw someone with a bit more weight, I'd probably take that line down a little and I'd smooth it out considerably. So not quite moobs, but
Moves.
not quite. Semi-moobs, Is semi-moves a thing?
It is now.
I'd also, instead of having the line of the belly button be this sort of long lean thing that you see here, so the shadow and then the belly button, instead I'd do it horizontally. So the shadow goes horizontally.
Yep.
Let's go on to the legs. Legs kind of stay the same. They're not that different. The only thing I'd probably say is that the knees are less pronounced. And I've already botched this up, I can tell.
More sausagey.
More sausagey, but at the same time you don't want it to just be like one sausage.
He's had too many sausages already.
This is turning into a sausage fest.
No.
I need to be proud.
I know he would. She would. They're so done. Okay, so
I learnt much from the pun god.
there's leg one.
The Punisher.
No, I will banish you. Okay, we want to soften the shoulders. So I'd probably take a more stylistic approach to this, and I'd probably get rid of the muscle as much up here. So that little black bit probably would go. I'd soften it up and also make his neck a little thicker. But I need to pay attention because I almost made it concave, and if I made it concave, he wouldn't necessarily be fat, he'd just be made of brick. So I need to make that convex, and I'd probably give it this is just looking weird. Whatever. We'll roll with it for now.
No, it's 5 to 9.
5 to 9? Oh, okay. Well, okay. Those are my tips. Make everything convex. Don't forget the anatomy. And I'd hesitate to say have several goes at it, because you probably won't get it. Well, I probably wouldn't get it first time anyway. Anything else I can? I'm gonna give him a face. Yay!
Success!
So yeah, that's what I do. If anyone's curious as to what I use apart from Photoshop, because there are free, potentially better, debatable alternatives.
Yeah, how much is your setup in terms of the tablet and
Okay. I've only had this for less than a year. Previously, I used a hella old Wacom bamboo tablet that you could probably get secondhand for like 20 or 30 bucks. The equipment doesn't make the artist. And the majority of the time, I use the $20 to $30 thing, and I wouldn't even use Photoshop. I'd use something like ArtRage, which is 20 to 30 bucks, or I'd use something called, oh, what is it called? There's a free...
That's an interesting name.
Shut up.
Was it GIMP?
You can use GIMP. GIMP is a free alternative to Photoshop. However, I've found on my computer, at least, it runs slow. But there's something... Yeah, Krita is a new one I got recently, and I've been trying it out, and it's really cool emulator of a... It's sort of like a canvas emulator. It's similar to ArtRage, but it's free. The Windows release is more stable than the Mac release, but I haven't had any problems with it. What else could I recommend? You could also just get a cheap tablet and use browser plugins. Like you can get Canvas, you can get Canvas apps for Chrome. The ones I use, or the ones that I've used previously, I haven't downloaded it. Doodler's a pretty good one. It's the same concept as the 30-second drawings, but they're not all people, and you have 2 minutes. The second one, oh, and another thing is you just use entirely grayscale. And the brushes, it's okay. It's a good sort of exercise. The second one, how many people here are on DeviantArt, if at all? Okay, you know how DeviantArt has this thing called Miro? yeah, that's become an application / extension for Chrome. And that's completely free. So you could essentially just get a $20 to $30 MacBook, get that on Chrome, and then you're laughing, and you can just upload immediately to DeviantArt if that's the stuff you do.
Oh.
But, you know, just because I've got super flashy things, I don't use this exclusively for drawing. I use this as part of my job. I edit photos. So, if you can't, I recommend not buying a subscription to Adobe, perfectly honest. And in fact, I think last year or maybe the year before, Adobe released CS2 for completely free. And so if you keep stalking Adobe, chances are they'll release CS3 or CS4 for completely free. Hopefully soon. Who knows? But I know you can still download CS2 for free if you look in the right places. What I will say is it's only compatible on all the devices. I think Windows, it goes up to Windows 7, and I think for Mac it only goes up to Power PCs, like the hardware Power PCs, or the ones that have this emulator known as Rosetta, which stopped when Mountain Lion was introduced. So if you have something older than Mountain Lion, you could get CS2 and run it completely fine. But after that, yeah. So yeah. As for, like, honestly, for figure drawing, like, for bigger works I use this, but for figure drawing when I want to be really quick, I use traditional media. I just use whatever I have to hand, even ballpoint pen, but I wouldn't recommend that because I'm really shit at drawing in ballpoint pen.
You cannot get worse than our art teacher. He decided that we should hold 3 pens in either hand and draw.
My art teacher liked the rag which we wiped our colours off more than she liked our artworks, which we spent hours on. So she framed those instead.
Oh.
Is it sad to say I like the way she thinks?
Well, when you're talking to like 10th graders.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's harsh. That's really harsh.
My 8th grade art teacher told me that what I had drawn was crap, threw it in the bin, and I never went back.
Yeah, I could see why. I have a love-hate relationship with learning art in school because
This is compulsory. I have no choice.
Yeah.
Just let me be.
yeah. I did a little bit of art in high school, and I found that the way that the art teacher taught was sort of like there is only one way, and so I went into digital media instead, where I could have like free reign. Then I did art as a major in college, and I found that it was less this is the one and only way, but it's that you have to learn the boring fundamentals in order to get to the cool shit. And so we'd spend a couple lessons learning about proportions and anatomy and shading, and we'd do this exercise where you'd draw a squiggle, and then you'd shade in everything. So some become convex, and some become concave. And literally, a squiggle like this, if you do it right, takes you 3 days.
Yeah, no, I know that feel.
Yeah, it's a huge, incredibly demanding exercise, but it's great. But it's boring as hell. And then you'd have to do stippling shading, which is literally just shading in dots. And that takes weeks to finish. I don't think I've ever finished one.
I had to do an A3 project in pointillism and I had to fill the whole page.
Oh no.
It destroyed my life for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can relate to you there. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much done. If you want, I can embarrass myself and show you my old DeviantArt account. And I can do that for 5 minutes, but I prefer that not to be filmed.
It's okay, you can do that after the filming is stopped.
Cool, okay, well consider this over. And thanks for watching.
Yay.